I'm supposed to talk now?
I hope so.
Okay. Okay, I'm guessing the other guys in here that I know are doing the same thing, but basically Ramsey wanted to talk to everybody about kind of our experience with camp, our kind of how we took what we learned there and found success with it. So I'm Dylan Hodgson. I'm from Washington, Kansas, went to Washington County High School. It's a school of, I don't know, 200 kids max. We bounce between 2A and 1A. So yeah, I went to camp for the first time between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. Kind of got introduced to camp through some older guys, kind of like I think everybody does. And they had some success with camp. So by the time I got there, I was pretty convinced that since I was introduced to it through guys that had success, that I should probably just listen to what everybody had to say. So to be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of frustrations with camp the first time, because like when you first start using the heart rate monitors, it can be frustrating for some people, because you usually, if you haven't been doing it, you would start running really slow. So like my first day at camp, I was running like 9-minute miles behind all the guys, most of the girls, doing some walking too. So I was definitely a little frustrated, not necessarily with like comparing myself to other people, but more than that, every other time I had run in my life, I was just running as hard as I could, because that's just what I thought you did to get better. That was like every other sport where the harder you try, the better you get. But it's not always the case. It's more, as Ramsey's probably talked to everybody about, training smarter rather than harder. So definitely bought in right away. When I first got to camp, I think my fastest mile was like 4:45, and my fastest 2-mile was a little bit under 10 minutes. Can't really remember, but yeah. And then that first year, between my first year at camp and second year at camp, I was still playing basketball and baseball, and wasn't really all about running yet. I kind of learned what I needed to learn that first year, but didn't really apply it. Like I wasn't all that in on running. So I got a little bit faster, in like 4:35 as a sophomore. And then after I didn't run well at state that year, I decided I needed to double down and take it more seriously. So between sophomore and junior year is when I had Ramsey start taking over my training full time, because all my workouts, because my high school coach, he was a great guy, loved track, but didn't really know what he was doing. Are we getting split up here? Anyway.
Dylan, hold on just a second.
Yeah.
The timer didn't get set right, so when it went to the breakout room, it brought them all back. So let her get that situated. He's fixing it now. Coach Jilka, which room do you want to be in?
I'll stay where I'm at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, did I miss anybody I apologize, you guys. Did I miss anybody that's still in here that should be in the other group? Did I lose Emma? Are you on here? Okay. I think I got everybody. If not, please just. Okay, I see the direct message. I'll get you moved. Okay, Dylan, I think you can start. Sorry about that.
Okay. So like I was saying, between sophomore and junior year, Ramsey started writing all my training, because my high school coach was a great guy and coach, but didn't really know what he was doing with distance runners, and he had no problem letting Ramsey help me out. So that year I ran a lot better. I got second at state cross country, and then won the mile, 2 mile, and 800 at state. And it was on our 4x4 team that medaled. And then, so that year I went from 4:36 and 9:45 to 4:16 and 9:20. And then, so that was a big breakout year, and then kind of doubled down on that. And my senior year ran 4:12 and 8:56 in the 2 mile. So yeah, I had a lot of success there. As far as like, he wanted me to talk about paces and stuff. So like the first year I was at camp, like I was saying, I was running like 9-minute plus pace a mile. Definitely discouraging, but kind of stuck with it over time. And by the time I graduated high school, me and Caden, who only a couple people in here know, but me and Caden would get together and run a couple days a week. And we'd be running, Ramsey would have us run for an hour, and we'd get over 10 miles running the same effort we were doing 8:30 miles 2.5 years earlier. So it's definitely crazy how fast. I mean, it seems slow at the time, but you just naturally slowly get a whole lot faster just running the same effort. So trying to think what else he said. Oh yeah. As far as how many days a week and how much we were running, pretty much we wouldn't run ever more than 70 minutes in a day. And we'd only run over an hour in a day once a week at most. And then my junior year, I think we took every Sunday off. So ran 6 days a week and then a day off. And then my senior year, we do like 10-day cycles, but depending on the time of year, it could be either 6 days on, 1 day off, or 9 days on, 1 day off. But never ran more than once a day. Like I didn't do a double until I was a sophomore in college or something. Trying to think. Anything else, Coach?
You're good.
Okay.
Don't have questions.
Okay, Brenneman, you're next.
Okay. Hey, I'm Dylan Brenneman. I went to Spring Hill High School. We're like a smaller, well, bigger 4A now. I guess it might be 5A now, actually. But my experience with camp was a little bit different than Dylan's. I was someone who didn't really buy in the first couple of years. I hated the fact I had to run slow. Like I remember my first year, like some of the older girls would pass me, and it was one of those things like, man, like I can run harder. I just like my watch is telling me not to. And I kind of hated that. But I'd say like after my sophomore year, I bought into the training and I started following it like religiously, and I saw huge improvements. I went from, like Dylan said, my freshman year, first time at camp was before my freshman year, and I was running nine minutes on a fast day. But like you said, by the end, I was able to crank out sub sixes and like have space to push harder if I wanted to. But I say I really bought in my sophomore year, and like my sophomore year, I went from like 9:48 and 4:27 to 4:14 and 9:25 off just like following the training, doing what I'm told. Like Dylan said, junior year it was 6 days a week we ran, and senior year is we had a 10-day cycle, like every 9 days take a day off basically, and it was like the same stuff, like same type of workout, like it was a cycle exactly. So everything kind of lined up. But I think that's one thing, like the biggest advice I could say is like to buy in early. The earlier you buy in, the sooner you're going to see success, and like stick with it in the beginning. It's tough when you know you can run faster, but listen to your body. It's telling you to go slower for a reason. And I'd say that's why like the biggest thing I can say is buy in. It worked for all of us. I think I stand for everyone to say the training worked. And I wish I bought in sooner, but I don't think I have too much. Oh, I run for K-State also. I guess I should probably add that. But I don't think I have too much more to add. Most of the stuff's same as Dylan. It's crazy if you trust it and you follow it. It's crazy. Like it takes a little while to see the progression, but once you see it, it's crazy like how fast it's like you won't see progression for a little while, and all of a sudden you just make a huge jump, and next thing you know, you're running 30 seconds faster on easy runs. But yeah. Clayton, you you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go.
You're on, Clayton.
Clayton, you froze.
Okay, if he froze, Aundrea, go.
Hey, my name is Aundrea Koger, and I went to a fairly small school as well, maybe about 250, 300 kids at most, and we usually wouldn't have very many people out for cross country. Typically, I was definitely the only person on my team that ran all year round. And so I was usually kind of out there training by myself. And my freshman year, let's see, I didn't meet Ramsey until like my junior year, I think, but I had heard of him through one of my club coaches for indoor track. And he had reached out to me a few times actually about coming to camp, and I didn't end up doing so until I think after my junior year is the first time that I went to camp. But yeah, my freshman year in high school, I didn't even break 12, was just still kind of like getting into the running thing. And so I had like pretty good big progressions between my freshman and my sophomore year. I think I PR'd in the 2 mile by probably almost a minute, and in the mile by like probably 20 seconds or so. But then between my sophomore junior year, I didn't really see very much of a improvement. Even though I had been training quite a bit, I was racing like pretty much 3 seasons out of the year, which Ramsey maybe wouldn't have been a fan of that, but I had expected to see more results than I was seeing essentially. And so that's kind of why I decided to go to camp, and decided to reach out to Ramsey eventually about helping me do workouts. And I had a pretty similar experience as Dylan and probably everybody else when I first started training with a heart rate monitor. I was running really slowly for a long time, and it took me a long time to see improvements on it. But part of that actually could have been because I was not anemic, but my ferritin was really low for a while. My senior year, and so I did end up having like a pretty significant improvement during my senior year after I had been training under Ramsey for about a year, but it wasn't until pretty late in my senior year. So I had started training with Ramsey like after like towards the end of my junior year and like through all of my senior year, and I didn't really have a breakthrough race until my last race in my senior year when I dropped my mile PR from 5:20 to 5:06. And that probably has a lot to do with the fact that my ferritin was low. So the training was definitely doing the right work for me. I just needed to get my blood work where it needed to be. But yeah, basically pretty similar experience for me as everybody else that trained with Ramsey, trained with a heart rate monitor. It was really slow at first, didn't see a lot of improvements at first, but then kind of all of a sudden I was running a lot faster. And I wasn't running any more than 6 days a week as well. I probably wasn't running any more than about an hour a day, typically, maybe 70 minutes at most. And it really set me up well to progress more in college once I started adding a little more volume and a little more intensity. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend following what Ramsey has to say, because it really focuses on longevity, I think, for your performance for sure.
Stephanie, did you go already?
Nope.
Okay, you're on.
All right.
Clayton, go last.
So like most of us small town kids, right? Arlington Valley High School, 2A. And
How many in
yeah.
your graduating class?
24.
There you go.
24. Yep. Didn't have a cross country program my freshman year. So I played volleyball very reluctantly. But finally got cross country, had one of the teachers, volunteer to coach a few of my classmates who felt sorry for me, didn't want to play football, came out and ran kind of situation. So I didn't have a big issue with like coach buy-in to the whole heart rate monitor, why are you running so slow conversation, like I'm sure some people did or do. So yeah, I mean, I didn't go to camp until after my freshman year when I kind of knew we were going to have a cross country team. I had done a couple just like open meets with the Blazers as a freshman out there with a bunch of, 10-year-olds. But yeah, I mean, my times dropped just like everyone else's, running easy runs as, a junior high kid, freshman, 8-minute pace, running pretty hard on easy days, but thinking you were doing yourself some good. Go to camp, knocks you down to 9 minutes, 9.5 when it's hot, walking when you're going uphill, like all of the bad stuff. And then, 20 seconds here, 20 seconds there. By the time you're a senior, under 7-minute pace for an easy run day. And like someone else said, with room that you could have gone faster, you're on the bottom end doing that kind of thing, just so you don't have to go so fast. But my times dropped, just like everyone else is saying, from like a 21-minute 5K kid to a sub 18 5K kid. And similar gains in all the other distances. But yeah, I think one thing that he wanted us to be sure and cover, coach did, was the struggles that some people have getting that buy-in from coaches. So if anyone has a situation they can share like that would be good, because it seems like so far we've all had pretty smooth sailing. So if someone didn't have smooth sailing, let's hear about that. Is that a perfect segue?
Yeah, I'll take over then now. So I'm Clayton Adams. Sorry about my technology glitch. We got some storms coming or something. But I'm from Missouri, unlike all these Kansas folk. A little bit bigger, graduating class of about 300. And I started running with heart rate monitor, 7th grade, 8th grade. My first camp was that summer. After 7th grade, I think. Is that right? I think so. Yeah. Anyways, it was miserable starting at first. At that point, the junior high training, there wasn't any pushback from coaches or anything. So I was able to really buy into the program and get started, which set up for a really quick start to my high school career. I was doing these long runs with the heart rate, these runs so slow. But the results were almost immediate. My freshman year of high school, I ran 4:23 and 9:30. So pretty decent times, especially for a freshman. And I was able to just kind of do what I wanted that first year. And then coming into my sophomore season, I had a coach, one specifically, who was he did not buy into the program at all. Coach Hodgson, if Ramsey remembers that name. And he actually ended up quitting. I ran him off. But with the help of Coach Ramsey, and luckily we had a really humble coach, Coach Roberts was his name in my high school. I was able to sit down with them. Sat down with them, brought my mom in because she's always a good backbone to have as well. And we kind of explained what I'd been doing for a couple of years and how I'd already had some really good success in the first year of high school. And showed the science behind it, why I wanted to keep training that way, and why honestly it would help the rest of the team. And like I said, one of the coaches ended up quitting that year. He said for other reasons, but I'm pretty sure he was just tired of all the pushback we were getting. He was just kind of a grumpy guy. But the other coach ended up listening, and the rest of my years in high school put into effect. I only ever ran 6 days a week. I've still never run more than 6 days in a week my entire life. And 60-minute runs at the longest, once a day, never twice a day until college. And the big thing I really thought was amazing about training with heart rate was anytime there was any fatigue or pushback or injury, or one year I had low iron levels, training at heart rate, I was able to notice fatigue and sicknesses coming on, and I was able to back off and train properly and heal and keep training through things. And I was able to recover much better, which then meant I could push my body more. So on the hard days, I could go harder. In my senior year, I ran 409 and 858. So came out strong as a freshman and just kept improving. All things I think, and I believe too, training with a heart rate, watching my body, making sure every step counted, until, now I'm running collegiately and still have a lot left in my legs.
Okay. Stephanie, Dylan, is there anybody else want to add something? I've got to go over and check the other room. Do some of you kids have any questions? Those types of things, or do any of you have other stories? Now, Aundrea has one, I know, that she needs to tell, and tell you not how to do something. I'll let her do that while I go take the other one.
So I am a good example of how not to talk to your coach, to ask Ramsey to write your workouts for you. So my junior year of high school during track, I was coming off of a cross season where I had won state that year. And during track, I was really kind of in my head, just like not seeing results, taking it way too seriously, and just like really wanted to see improvements that I wasn't seeing, maybe even unrealistic improvements, honestly. And so I had run with Ramsey for the Blazers that fall. I hadn't been to camp yet, but I reached out to him about starting to write my workouts. And to be honest, I didn't really intentionally, I guess, go behind my coach's backs. It was just sort of like kind of a trend for me in high school, because I was the only one that was really training very seriously and wanted to run in college, that sometimes they would just kind of let me do what I wanted to do. And so I thought oh, I'll just talk to Ramsey and have him write my workouts and tell my coaches that I'm getting workouts from someone else and it'll be fine. But it did not go over super well at first. Thankfully, I have a very, very gracious and kind high school coach who I had a very long talk with him over that summer after my junior year. And I talked about the science quite a bit, and talked about how it would be helpful even for the whole team to buy into the training. And he did end up finally sort of agreeing to let Ramsey write workouts for a whole team, starting that cross-country season. And so Ramsey ended up writing workouts for the team. And that fall, I didn't really have a very good cross-country season because my ferritin was pretty low. I think it was maybe like an 8 or so by the end of the cross-country season. And so I didn't perform very well at state, and was again a little bit frustrated, but had to like forgive myself a little bit because I just wasn't very healthy at that point. I was really low on iron, and so I tried to work on getting that up like through the rest of my senior year, and really struggled to until I finally found like an iron supplement that worked for me, and that my senior year track, I finally had a little bit of breakthrough at state in the mile, and I got third there and PR'd by about like 8 seconds or so. I had never broken 5:20 before that, and ran about 5:14 at state, and then a couple weeks later turned around and ran 5:06 in the mile. So I guess the 1600, not the full mile. But yeah, my story looked a little different my senior year than maybe other people's would have, because my ferritin was really low. But the races towards the end of my senior year really helped kind of show for me how well Ramsey's training worked. And I actually have started, after I graduated from college, have started training with Ramsey again. I've had him write some workouts for me, or at least help me write the workouts for myself to race this past track season. And even after like training collegiately, running like I think I was probably running up to about like 60 or 65 miles a week towards the later end of my college career. Was doing like crazy intense workouts, probably like way too much glycolytic work. So like really hard, fast intervals. And it kind of worked for a little while because I was smart enough and had enough of an aerobic base to like take care of my body. But towards the end of college, I was pretty darn injured and just kind of like limping along and like managing to put something together and still improve. But I took some time off, started training with Ramsey again, and honestly now I am probably not running any more than like 45 miles a week. I run by time now again, so that's just an estimation. But yeah, probably no more than about 45 miles a week at most. I didn't really do long runs during the track season. I probably wasn't running any more than about 80 minutes at most. And I ended up PRing in 3 different events. Yeah, I can't say enough about Ramsey's training plan. It really helps you improve the right way in a sustainable, sort of longevity oriented way that keeps you healthy and going strong for as long as you can.
Anybody else have questions? If not, I just wanted to tack on that if any of you guys do have questions, you can find me, or I'm sure Clayton and Aundrea the same. Reach out and ask us anything on social media or anything. I know I was always a bug in older guys' ears when all through coming up and running. So anytime you guys want to reach out, feel free.
While I'm thinking about it, I'm sure there's some people there at the Miller's house that have some questions. You can't tell me the 3 of you sitting there don't have any questions. Well, I'm putting you on the spot. You're good? You get a chance to talk to people that got really, really good, and you're all going to clam up on me? Nothing. Carter.
Okay, hold on. You got a question, Aiden?
Aiden, let's go.
Come on, I don't know. Jack? The training sounds reasonable.
Reasonable.
No, it sounds good. It sounds good.
Oh, do you still do the same training in college?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you guys still do the exact same training in college? Like, how does
I
that
have to ask them that. That's a good question.
I can go. Definitely, it's going to be a different answer for everybody because the same thing with high school. Different college coaches are going to respond to how you present. I mean, college is a whole different thing. Like their entire career, they're not teachers, they're not PE teachers, they're literally there to do that job. So I would say very, very few college coaches are going to definitely not let Ramsey just take the reins, but definitely I think everybody can attest that what you learn, like the very fundamentals of what kind of training works and what doesn't, is absolutely applicable to when you go to college and you learn the point of each workout before you probably get there. So like you can, at least my program, I ran at KU, just graduated, and if I wanted to wear a heart rate monitor, he had absolutely no problem. He didn't monitor how fast we ran on easy days. I don't know what sessions you guys have gone through, but we did an altered version of the speed training he did. Ramsey had us do. Ramsey pretty much never had us work out or do one workout in a race more than two, like either race and one workout or 2 workouts a week, which I know some college programs do more, but I know just for me, anything more than that probably wouldn't have worked. Definitely the quality over quantity things that Ramsey taught us, I would still apply in my own training and took with me to college. Like in college, I improved every year, with the exception of this year for some reasons I don't feel like talking about, but I improved every year and never ran more than 75 miles in a week, which I think most college guys probably on the low end are doing 70. So I've had a lot of success just keeping the fundamentals. We obviously can't do the exact same thing we did in high school and college, but once I'm back healthy, I fully plan on applying a lot of the same things that I did in high school to my training in the future. So just as Aundrea is. So.
Well, and I will throw a couple of things out here that I will tell you. Even if you're training now and you go to college, your college coach isn't going to have any problem with you running as long as you're taking your recovery days easier and you already know what those have to be if you know what your AT is. So once you know your AT and know how to manage it and where it's at, you don't need a heart rate monitor to do your easy days. You know you're staying below that. It's being able to figure out where that AT is because it only happens at one exact point in your entire spectrum of your heart rate. It only happens once, and it's one cadence at that point. So that's something for you to remember, is that if you can figure out where that's at, it's applicable for the rest of your running career. If you stay below that, you know you're training your aerobic conditioning system. You're not overdoing it. And again, I can't emphasize enough that most people do their easy runs too fast and their fast runs too slow. And I don't know how many of my athletes that went to college and when they get done or during college will say to me, I'm not as fast as I was in high school. I don't know how many of them have said that to me. I'm not as fast as I was in high school doing your training. I'm running fast, but I'm not, I know I can run faster if I threw the stuff in that you were doing, which I can't do. And Clayton, I want you to address how you would go about doing your speed runs out on the road when you would do those when that, but we'll let this question get finished up. Anybody else have anything to add with that as far as college? You want, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll talk about college too. The big thing I'll plug in for Ramsey is I still work on my form every day, 2 minutes in front of the mirror. I still do 30 seconds each foot, eyes closed every day. Like those basics, those carry over, those small things. Every morning I wake up, pounding water, hour and a half before I go exercise, lift, run, race, drinking water, like right before I go to bed. So these like kind of things he's talked about on Sunday and Monday, those haven't left on those basics. Training wise, yeah, transitioning from minutes to miles was kind of strange, but I kind of got a hang of it. And again, knowing my AT, knowing what paces I ran in high school for my easy runs, I just make sure I'm recovering and I can feel it. In between workouts or on my easy days now, I know when I'm going too fast and I know I need to back out. My body lets me know. So I think just committing to it now in high school, you can kind of get a hang of it and feel how it is. And then it just carries over. And I took a 2-year church mission break and I came back and I still knew when too fast was too fast and when, I was going too slow and I could go faster. If I was feeling good, I could feel my heart rate where it was at. So it just carries over.
What about the incorporating your runs into your speed runs into an easy run?
Yeah, like the flying workouts. Yeah. So there's the workouts Coach Ramsey talked about, the flying 30s, 60s, and those are usually, I tried not to do the 150s on the road, but in high school, a lot of times I would do these absolute speed workouts, really work on getting faster, all out. I do them out on the road as a part of just my easy run during the week. For a little bit, it turned into a little bit of a longer run. But what I do is, I'd go out 10 to 15 minutes like a warm up. And then I kind of map out either with my eyes and then also just off of time. For the 30-second runs, it'd be like 3 or 4 seconds. And then the 60-meter runs, it'd be like twice that. And I do a build up from just my easy run pace, build up 30 or 40 meters, a couple seconds till I hit all out speed for these 30 or 60 meters, and then ease off again for a couple seconds, back down to easy run pace. And then I jog that easy run, just easy, 4 minutes. And then I pick it up again and do the sprint. And I do, depending on the day, 10 to 12 of those I did a lot of out and backs in high school. So I'd going out just on these, dirt roads, gravel roads, whatever, paved random roads to abandoned places, whatever, just out every 4 minutes, doing the sprint, the absolute all out flying speed, 4 minutes out and then coming back. And I was able to, cause I couldn't go on the track, couldn't go do workouts for it. So I didn't know exactly what 30 meters was or 60 meters was. So I was able to kind of do it out on the roads like that.
Good. Anybody else with the university or college story in particular? Aiden,
I think one thing to keep in mind is like it really depends, but most of the time, like college coaches are going to know a little bit more about training than like the average high school coach might. There are definitely plenty of exceptions, but that is one thing that you can kind of rely on a little bit in college for most programs. And usually, like, if you can't, like if it's a coach in college that is just like their training is just ridiculous, you usually figure that out pretty quickly, and hopefully you can even figure that out like before even deciding to go to that college. But a good way to sort of like integrate Ramsey's training into college training is just sort of like listening to your body and like fitting it in wherever you can. So I guess my coaches were pretty hands-off for anything except for the workouts, which was really nice because that allowed me to do easy runs kind of at whatever pace I felt like I needed to do. It allowed me to do like true speed workouts some days of the week. And I would just kind of try to squeeze in things that I knew were really helpful where I could, and just listen to my coaches for everything else. And I think that's honestly the best way to do it. I wouldn't recommend even like bringing up trying to change like a college coach's training plan unless you really truly are concerned about it and feel like you can't work around it at all, because most of the time like a college coach is not going to want to hear any of that, and so if you have any questions about like talking to coaches in general, about like what sort of training that they do and like how to kind of ask them about their training program, like before deciding to go to a college, I'm sure you can reach out to any of us and see what our experiences were like when we were sort of shopping around for different colleges and kind of trying to feel out maybe where we could go that would allow us to, you know, run at a good school, but still sort of integrate aspects of training that we did in high school that were really helpful.
I had another thought on it. One of the big things that's really helped me transitioning to college and knowing, you know, having learned so much from going to camp, from training with Coach Ramsey in high school, was honestly buying in, like we've kind of said, you know, make sure you know what you're getting into, but then buying into what the college coach has us do for the training. You're going to find so many similarities. It's going to make sense. If you're like wondering, oh, why are we doing this? You know, say, hey, coach, could you explain why we're doing this workout? Why? Because they've had success. You know, they know what they're doing. They know how to train at maybe a little bit more mature body as well. So buy in, trust them, absolutely ask questions, but always be respectful. And you're going to find a lot of really good similarities because that's how you train successful athletes. Comes down to pretty basic science. And if you're smart, you're going to figure that out. So buy in, ask questions, and trust that it makes sense.
Anything else that anybody else wants to ask while you got the chance?
I'd like to ask, the three of you indicated, I think it was Dylan, Stephanie, and Aundrea. Clayton, it seemed like your times were incredibly fast right off when you started into high school. And a couple of you alluded to, it seemed like what I heard in your stories, that it was like your junior, senior year that you really started to notice the improvements. I guess my question from a coaching perspective is, how much of your year, I think Dylan, you mentioned you still played baseball and another sport. How much of the year were you just doing this in your cross country track seasons? Were you doing this year round? I struggled trying to get my kids to run year round in a sense. I probably had the best group ever this summer. They've been tremendous coming off a track and running well, and they're a very good group, and I want to keep that going. But I'm just curious from your stories, how did that all continue to, what'd you notice? And did you have teammates that helped, that also kind of went along with you with that, or was it more individualistic? I'm just kind of curious to hear a little bit more about your stories.
Yeah, I quit playing. I played every sport on earth just because I was at a small school and we could play as much as we wanted to, with the exception of soccer. We didn't have soccer, but I played every sport up until my freshman year. I played basketball, and then I didn't quit baseball until my sophomore year of high school. So, and by the way, I think Ramsey has alluded to this in the past. I think coming from an actual athletic background is definitely beneficial. So if I were to talk to a high school coach, I wouldn't discourage them from telling their kids to play other sports. Kyler True played basketball until he was a senior, and then would run 20, 30 minutes after basketball practice and ran under 150 in the 800 and ended up one of the best high schoolers of all time in Kansas. But as far as I went, I just wasn't playing enough in basketball to keep playing, so I didn't want to keep doing it. Baseball, I just got bored of. So more just the process of elimination for me, not wanting to play any other sports, rather than me actually thinking that eliminating everything else would make me a better runner. I just was way more passionate and successful in running, so I just devoted all my time to that. So I think freshman year, I played basketball and then would run 2 days a week. And then sophomore year, when I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I'd probably run 3 or 4 days a week. Like I said, I came from a very small high school that has literally no running history at all. Like my high school boys, our school record when I got to high school was 11:01 in the 2 miles. So terrible. Most girls have run faster, or most high school girls school records are faster than that. So we were terrible. So yeah, I had no one to run with, except maybe once or twice a month I would drive 30 miles either way to run with one of my friends that from another school was in the same situation. So I ran, like I said, 3 or 4 days a week during my sophomore year, except for cross country and track season where I ran 5 days a week, just took the weekends off because I didn't know you were supposed to run more than what just practice. So, and then junior year when Ramsey kind of started steering my ship, I ran 6 days a week at least for pretty much year round, except for 2 weeks after cross country and then 2 or 3 after track. I would take completely off. So.
Yeah, I played basketball all the way through my senior year, and I would do a similar thing. So a little bit of speed work, and then easy runs like 40 minutes either in the morning or after practice. And then I played softball in the summer all the way through my senior year. So it was a go to softball game, go to track meet kind of situation, like back and forth, sometimes even in the same day. Probably not the smartest looking back at it, but it worked. But yeah, no, didn't have anyone, like team aspect wise from the running side to go along with. It was just me and very, like supportive parents along that route. So yeah, I think maybe my junior, senior year for kind of other reasons, but I would drive to Kansas City to get a workout in with other people for like cross country and track season. But the mandatory weeks off after cross and track season, but otherwise pretty much running or playing 1 or 2 sports year round. So.
Aundrea?
I was a little bit different than maybe Dylan and Stephanie. I pretty much just focused on running in high school, but that was mostly because that was like the only thing I was actually good at and liked. And so I played like basketball and other sports like off and on a little bit like growing up, but really kind of found my passion for running like starting in middle school and like into high school. And honestly in early high school I probably I mostly would just train like during cross country and during track, and like only running like 5 days a week, just like weekdays during practice. And my freshman year, I did actually join an indoor track club. Dylan actually was on the same team with me. And so I was doing a little bit of winter training with that, but again, probably wasn't more than like 5 days a week usually. And I would take breaks between like each of the seasons, at least early on. And sophomore year, I started maybe training a little more. And it wasn't until probably like maybe later in my sophomore year and then into my junior and senior year when I actually started running like 6 days a week, pretty much all year round, except for the like couple weeks off that I would take after cross country and after track. So yeah, I didn't really do any other sports in high school, but I did like train and compete pretty much year round. So yeah, it worked pretty well for me.
And I want to throw in something here that Aundrea just made mention of that made me think of this. You have to understand that it'll take 4 to 6 weeks generally before this is the first time that you've done the heart rate monitor and you're staying below AT. It'll take 4 to 6 weeks before you start to notice improvements. And the way you notice them is, and it almost always to the second 20 seconds of improvement. I don't know why that happens, but it's right at 20 seconds of improvement per mile. If you're running on a mile or you happen to know where the mile is, you'll notice a 20-second improvement. You'll look down at your watch and you go, man, I'm at the low end of the zone. I was at the high end of the zone. So you speed up, and that zone encompasses about 20 seconds. And then it takes about 2 to 3 weeks after that. And then you have another 20 seconds of improvement, and another 2 to 3 weeks, another 20 seconds of improvement. You can see how all of a sudden that's going to make a great deal. The other thing is, when they take the time off, it usually takes, when they come back and start training, since they've done their base work and the consistency has been there, that it takes about 2 or 3 weeks after they start running, and then they're pretty much back to the same pace that they were doing prior to that. So you can see how quickly, after even taking a break, that their heart rate still goes down. And they'll get to the point where I've had many runners get to this point where they didn't even want to run that fast. Tommy Neal's a classic example of that. He had to run sub 5:30 all the time if he wanted to be in aerobic conditioning. So he would just stay in aerobic, what would be the recovery zone or warm-up zone or maintenance zone, and he would just stay there because he knew that he wasn't losing anything, he wasn't gaining anything, but he sure as hell didn't have to run as fast. So it's something to consider, and you've got to keep in mind that you might be starting out slow, but you're going to be running a heck of a lot faster by the end of the whole thing. And it's probably going to be within a year or so faster than you want to run. Just putting that out there, because you're going to get in such better shape in that particular energy system. Okay, Coach Zilka, you have any other questions?
Just real quick, remind me again whether you or Clayton mentioned about the speed runs. On the 150s, when you do those, and we've done them at the track, but do you do an active recovery after that, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every absolute speed workout where you're running all out requires 4 minutes of active recovery. That means recovery below AT. So you can see, if you're doing 10 times a flying 30, 10 times the 4 minutes of active recovery is 40 minutes. You've only got 9 sessions where you actually have the active recovery, but you got to have all the 40 seconds or the 30 meter sprints that you did in the acceleration and deceleration phases. So you might as well just say 40. You have your warm up and your cool down. You're well over 60 minutes right then. So the big thing is, you've got to get the blood lactate down, and the only way to do that is to do it at a pace that's below AT when you're doing the 4 minutes of active recovery.
I'll add on to that specifically with the 150s, if they're doing them all out as they shouldn't have any antsiness to want to go any sooner than 4 minutes. As fun, I like 150 is one of my favorite workouts, but like I had Ramsey helping me out this fall when I was not planning on returning to school. Like, doing a 150 all out when you haven't done it in a few years, you're pretty toast. And when you do it 3 or 4 or 5 more times, you'll have no problem waiting at least 5 minutes before you do the next one.
One thing I also like to do with 150s is, honestly, for the first like 30 seconds or so after one of them, I'll like walk for like 30 seconds just to get my heart rate down, because sometimes it won't even want to drop enough, like fast enough that I feel comfortable to like start jogging again. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The only one of those, the flying 30s or the flying 50s, 60s, whatever you want to call it. As long as you're going below 7 seconds, you're not transitioning to another particular energy system and a fiber group. But the 150s are the only one of you're going to do of the speed that will actually elevate your heart rate in. Because you can go right from the flying 50, decelerate just a little bit. Your heart rate didn't have a chance to get up because you didn't go long enough. But those 150s, you're going to know you did something. And if you do any of those faster than 4 minutes of active recovery between, you will pay the price. Your legs will get toasted. Trust me on this.
Coach Jelka, I don't know if you've ever done them before or you've ever had your people do them before, but for me, the first time Ramsey told me to do them, the year at camp, my first year at camp, I had to leave early for a wedding, so I didn't get to see how they actually did them. So like, I think for the first fall, I was doing completely wrong and doing them at like 80% max effort. And then for those 4 minutes, I was running way too fast. I was running closer to like my AT pace. But when I was doing them correctly, by the end of my senior year, I was running like 100%, maybe not 100%, because when they say when you're on 100%, you start doing weird stuff with your arms. So 99.9% all out. And then for those 4 minutes, I was like, I wouldn't even cover the entire, Ramsey probably doesn't want to hear this, but I didn't even cover a half mile. I would just get back to the 700 meter mark where I started the last one. And then wait there for 10, 15, 20 seconds and then start another one. So it's definitely, the concentration of it is not, you're still building some aerobic base in that time that you're getting there. But the point of it is to get like trigger those biomechanics and like actual fiber recruitment, not like an aerobic effort, you know?
Yeah, to be honest, I do really similar things to what Dylan just said. Like when I am doing my active recovery between even my flying workouts, like the 30s and the like 50s or 60s, I am kind of a slug like between each of them. And honestly, I just kind of take it as like a recovery pace day and just focus on like trying to run as fast as I can for the 30s and the flying 30s and flying 50, because that's honestly what's most important during that day.
And as long as you stay within that 30 beats of AT and not go over, you're going to be getting, you're going to be helping your aerobic system one way or the other.
Coach, on the
Yes.
150.
Hold on just a second. We had go ahead, Clayton, and then I'll go back over here to Carter and the boys.
Okay, sorry. I was just wondering, thoughts on the 150s, spiking up. What do you think about that to make sure you're going as fast as you can?
Well, if you're on the track, definitely. I mean, most people can get on the track. In fact, that's where I would recommend you do the 150s every time. You're either going to do it from one end of the track to the other, because you should always do those with the wind. And spiking up for the last two is almost a must. Almost a must. Oh, Stephanie, when this is over with, give me a shout on WhatsApp, would you please? Okay, Carter, you had something, or was it Aiden?
Yeah, I had a question. Can you still become like sore if you're running in that 15 below your AT zone where you're still getting benefit for your aerobic or whatever?
You mean from below, just 1 beat below AT to 15 beats below AT? Can you get sore?
Yeah, like
absolutely not.
No?
It's impossible, because
Okay.
you're not pooling any lactic acid. I did a test in 1993 with my dad's entire cross country team, and the first day of practice, probably 50% of them hadn't run a lick all year. Every single one of them put a heart rate monitor on, and I made sure they stayed below what I knew their AT had to be, 165 for guys and 170 for the gals. And at that point, they had to do whatever they had to do to make sure they stayed below it. They ran for an hour, and not one of them got sore. It's impossible because you're not pooling any lactic acid whatsoever. That's the point of AT. AT is the point. Anaerobic threshold is the point that you cannot metabolize, assimilate, get rid of lactic acid as fast as you're producing it. Sitting there right now, you guys are producing lactic acid. You don't have any choice. You are. You're producing lactic acid.
One more time, and you're gonna be sorry.
What do you mean? Just
The only time you produce so much that you can't is when you go over anaerobic threshold.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've noticed my past couple runs.
Yeah, I know.
Heart rate still below, or it's staying below, but I'm able to chop down my pace, so it's getting
You'll
better.
notice that. Well, and the other thing that I would tell you is that first 6 to 7 minutes, you've got to stay 15 to 20 beats below AT, because if you don't, you're going to get your heart rate's going to elevate. That's just like warming up for any run. You've got to stay that first 6, 7 minutes down there to make sure you're doing it. You've got to stay below that. If you don't, you're going to be about anywhere from 90 seconds to 2 minutes slower than you would have been going. If you elevate it, you just wasted a workout as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
You add the caveat that when you first start doing speed, you might get a little bit sore, not from lactic acid, but like 150s, you're going to be sore just because you peak over it for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and you also, the other thing that you'll also notice is you're doing stuff that you've never done before. That's why you should never do 6 of them the very first time. 5 of them is more than enough. High school level, 5 of them is the most you should do the very first time you ever do them. And that's another thing. The first one you do shouldn't be totally all out. It's like warming up to do the whole thing. They should get progressively faster, especially on the second one of everything that you do, because you've still got to get your body warmed up to doing that. Even though you did the entire warm up and you did strides and you did all that, you're really getting after it, and you're doing things with your muscles, especially the very first time you ever do this, that you haven't done before. So you could get a little sore after the 150s, but it goes away fairly quickly. Okay. Anything else there?
I think we got a couple.
Okay.
Sue has a question too.
Yep. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, the 150s, how many, how often can you do that workout?
Once every 2 weeks.
Got it.
Once every
Thank
2 weeks. The guy, all of these people will tell you, with the exception of Stephanie, we did them we did the entire circuit through them, the 3 speed sessions in 2 weeks. You do the flying 50 or the flying 30s one day, you'd wait about 3 to 4 days, and then you do either the 150s or the flying 50s or flying 60s, whichever one you were doing. And then you wait 4 or 5 more days, and then you do the other one. So every 2 weeks you were going through that cycle, and then 6 weeks you'd see the exact same thing. Okay, so 3 of those workouts, 3 different workouts, but they were balanced over the course of 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I absolutely had no problem here. Well, Dylan, I was talking about Dylan Brenneman, but Dylan was on here. Clayton's on here. We used to do some of those flying workouts the day before a big meet, wouldn't we?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a totally different energy system. So why would you even waste it? I don't like doing the 150s. Some people can do it. I don't quite like doing those the day before a big meet, but I'll do the flying 30s the day before a big meet without any problem whatsoever.
Yeah, it's basically an easy run with strides, just a shorter and harder strides. So it's not out of the ordinary.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Junior.
Okay, so with the with the AT training, when you're training your aerobic threshold or your aerobic system, you could be dropping, like, if I start out, I'd probably be going super fast, and then my times over time, my times would get faster, and my AT would stay the same, correct?
Your AT always stays the same basically throughout the entire year. Okay, it might drop a beat over the course of a year, but your times within that zone, if you're running a mile, could drop as much as 2 to 3 minutes within a year. Okay, and because your oxygen transport system and your aerobic zone, which everything from the 800 up play into, all of them play into it, even the 400, but the longer the distance, the more important it is that you train this system. So if you're looking at a 5K, most people believe that 70 to 80% of a 5K is strictly aerobic conditioning. So it should make sense that you're doing a bunch of training in that zone. So you're going to notice that your pace, you might have been running 8 minutes at a certain heart rate, and then later on you're running 6 minutes at the exact same heart rate. And if you're running that fast, it means you got faster in all kinds of phases of this.
So you would train for however much time per day, keeping in that like 15 to 1 beat under your AT, and you do that most of the time, and then every couple of days you do a speed work day, which would be training your anaerobic system.
Well, no. You're not training, training your anaerobic system doing that. Okay? That's about muscle fiber types that we're going after. Okay? Glycolic workouts, fast twitch oxidative glucolic stuff. But you're just getting aerobic base work in. And if you're going to do speed stuff, you've got to do it. Okay, sorry. Somebody take this just a second. I got to take this.
Do you want one of us to talk? I think I can finish this thought. This time of year, especially the summertime, you would want to do a certain amount of time in that aerobic zone. Probably 6 days a week. I don't know how much you run, but maximum an hour, minimum. Usually he'll have us do 40 minutes a day when we start out. 40 minutes, that's including the 7-minute, like pretty slow, and then you build into that 15 below AT zone. And then you could start now theoretically, but as you get closer to the season, you'll do those speed sessions once every 4 to 5 days. And then I don't know if you guys have gone through the whole training theory speech yet, but and then that's when you'll actually do different workouts. So those speed days aren't workouts in the sense that you're building your anaerobic threshold. They're literally just top end speed development, which will trickle down to helping you run faster in every other speed. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Again, the big thing you have to understand is the thing we're primarily going after here is the aerobic system, and we're teaching both ends of the spectrum. We want to build that base of all this aerobic work to teach your oxygen transport system how to process oxygen that much better and more efficiently. But we also want to work on your top end speed. So the faster you are, these paces that you would normally run actually feel slow because your body's ready to run a lot faster. So we're doing both ends of the spectrum at the same time and maxing out that benefit. We don't even start doing VO2 max work or what people would call aerobic capacity or any of that stuff. We don't do any of that stuff until 6-8 weeks into when we started our time of training. There's no point. If you're worried about that and worried about tempo runs and cruise intervals, you're wasting so much time. It's not even funny. And this is all about being efficient with time usage. Okay. Anything else? Well, if Dylan, you had something?
No, I just saw those three guys trying to get the other one to ask a question, so I was watching them.
Okay. Anything else there, Jack, Carter, or Aiden? No. Okay. Well, Cody, do you have any questions? Not to put you on the spot or anything. I take that.
No, not really.
Okay. Coach Alex, any questions?
Not at this moment, maybe later.
Okay, no worries. And again, coaches, make sure you get a hold of me. And I saw that Carter was basically ready to ask a question. I'm listening. No question, Carter? Okay, I thought you were doing that. Okay, I appreciate everybody taking the time to come to this session. I hope you got something out of it. Coaches, feel free to give me a shout at any time. I'd prefer WhatsApp if you can do that. If not, call me on the regular 913 number. You can always send me an email and we'll figure out a time. I'll be back in the States probably around the 20th of August. Really appreciate you guys showing some interest, and especially those of you that participated in the workshop tonight. Thanks for all your help. If you have any questions, give me a shout, but we'll go from there. Okay? Okay, you guys take care.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Andy.
Very appreciated.
Coach.
Thank you.
No worries.
Coach, it looks like the other room must have wrapped up too.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
I got a message that they had